What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Show and Go podcast, where we bring you all of your MLB The Show news and opinions. I'm Balake, also known as Mr. Perfect himself, and I'm here with the check swing bandit, Ryan Jones, and the man who's nothing short of stellar, Anthony Stellar Harder. Today we are discussing and ranking our favorite Diamond Dynasties from MLB The Show. So sit back, get comfortable, play a couple Conquest games, and listen to the sweet, sweet sound of our takes. All right, today we are doing our MLB The Show rankings. Of course, that is Diamond Dynasty rankings. We are not going to be going into MLB 11, 12, 10, 9, 8, because those don't really have Diamond Dynasty, so there's no point in doing it. But today we're going to be covering MLB 15 through 20, so we got a good mix going. Why don't we just get right into it? My top 5 Diamond Dynasties are... coming in at number 1, we have MLB The Show 17. Easily my favorite of the series. I have so many fond memories of playing that game. I played it all year, never had any desire to play anything else. I made World Series for the first time. I went 12-0 for the first time, and there's so many fond memories from that game. I don't know if another MLB The Show will come close to taking the crown from it, but we'll see. Coming in at number 2, we have MLB The Show 20. Now, it's kind of a hot take because right now everybody's kind of shitting on the game on the internet, which is fine. I have the same concerns for sure. But as far as personal favorites go, this one's definitely coming in at number 2 because this is the first time I've ever completed the collections. This is the first time I've maxed out the XP bar. This is just a lot of firsts for me in this game that I haven't done in other ones, and I really enjoyed the experience this year. Coming in at number 3, we have MLB 19. 19 was fun. Honestly, I didn't play it as much as I would have liked. I think I could have put in a lot more time in ranked. I could have put in a lot more time grinding for those collections. My buddies in the podcast here were way ahead of me when it came to collections and stuff, and I kind of wish I had gotten more into that at the time.
According to you, Carlos Gomez's 85 was an endgame card.
He was my endgame card. Let's just say that. That swing, nobody better. Nobody better. And his PCI was minuscule. You couldn't find a player with a smaller PCI, but he raked. And I can't explain it. It was just a phenomenon that happened in 19, and I'll always remember Carlos Gomez for that. Coming in at 4, I have MLB 16, and 16 and 19 to me are kind of interchangeable because I had sort of the same experience. Really fun gameplay, didn't get super into collections and programs and anything like that. I mainly just played a lot of ranked. Specifically with 16, that was when I first got into playing Diamond Dynasty exclusively. That was when Road to the Show started to seem a little bit boring. I hate to say that, but I had played so much Road to the Show up to that point that Diamond Dynasty was so new and so fresh that it was really hard to go back. I think I've made a Road to the Show character every year and just never touch it after day one. But honestly, with 16, I remember one of my buddies who had told me about Diamond Dynasty. We would take turns pitching and hitting in a ranked game. So one of us would pitch and one of us would hit. And it was a really fun dynamic that for somebody who didn't really care about my ranking. And because of that, I would love to see some sort of co-op mode in Diamond Dynasty, just like Mutt Squads in Madden. I think that would be a huge add, but we talked about that in our wishlist podcast, so I'm not going to get too far into that. Coming in next is MLB 15. Sort of the same idea. Definitely a fun game. I really struggled at first, especially with hitting and pitching. That was where that learning curve really came in. But still a really fun game. The content for 15 and 16 definitely wasn't there compared to the newer MLBs. The 99s were scarce, whereas today there's a bunch of them. You can fill your team with them no problem without dropping a dime. And that's a huge improvement for sure. Coming in at dead last is MLB 18. That game was not fun, not worth the grind. And I'm glad I only played it for 3 months because I feel like if I played any more than that, I would have been wasting my time. Easily the worst of the series for me. It was a huge letdown after how fun 17 was for me. And maybe that was The problem that 17 was so high on my list that 18 was just, it could never compare. But that's my top 6, so let me hear your guys's, and then we can get into the specifics.
So my all-time favorite MLB The Show has to be 17. I played that game for probably months if I go back and look at the amount of time I was on that game. I didn't play any other games at the time, and it just didn't bore me out the entire time. Content was always worth grinding for in my mind. And it wasn't too frustrating. It was rewarding, besides the server issues in the beginning and all that. But moving on to number 2, I have to say 19 was my second favorite. I think 19 walked so 20 could run. I think Sig Series was just a huge improvement over what was in place before then, and that alone put 19 towards the top for me. Going on, looking back, 16 is just a little bit behind 20, but 20 is going to be my third place. I love this game. Content has been amazing. Feedback has been iffy. That's the only critique against this game right now. Servers have been great. It was such a smooth launching point for servers this year. I have to commend them on that. So like I said earlier, 16 would be number 4 for me. Looking back, it has a lot of cool ideas that I think they revisited and improved upon. Going on to like 19 is when it really had a resurgence. I'll talk about that later, but ideas for like Team Affinity, the XP reward path, Battle Royale, those all started in 16. MLB The Show 15 was really where I got my start. I didn't get the game until December, so it was already pretty late in the life cycle, but I enjoyed it. It was fun to play MLB The Show for the first time. I have 50 Layers of Crap on the list next, and then we have MLB The Show 18. I maxed out my XP rewards on all the other games besides 18. I'm like a gold level 30 on that game, and I just dread talking about it every time because the way the rewards and content were set up, it was so bad. Just poorly planned. An honorable mention for me, MLB The Show 12 with Adrian Gonzalez on the cover. My brother had a PS3 and he had that game. And I snuck in a couple nights and played it till like 3 a.m. till I was caught. Never played it again. Loved Road to the Show. That got the real fire burning down deep inside me.
All right, Anthony, you're up.
All right, so having that I've only played 20 and 19, I made a list ranking back to 17 because that makes sense. With that being said, I agree with Ryan. I think 19 walked so 20 could run. But I put 20 at my favorite just for different reasons. I think content is even better. That's like ridiculously better. I've had some of my favorite cards used in 20. So that's why I have 20 first. Like Ryan said, feedback and gameplay is iffy. So I was thinking about putting 20 second, but I remember 19 had the same problems. It was phrased MLB the lineout 19. So then going to 19 being second on my list, it was the first MLB game. It was a lot of fun. Did the collection rewards. Never made World Series that game or in 20, so that's why it's second. Next, from what I've heard, I have 17, third on the list. I've heard nothing but good things about this game. I'm sure if I played it, it'd be higher up from what I've heard. And then I've watched gameplay on 18 from other content creators like Cougs and Kevin. So 18 shouldn't even be on this list. That's how bad it is from what I've even seen and heard.
All right. Now, I think we're each going to get into a specific MLB and talk about what we remember from it. We're going to talk about our favorite moments, favorite features, stuff they should bring back, stuff they should have gotten rid of, anything having to do with the game. So first, I'm going to talk about 17. So with 17, It's sort of a mixed bag with what you hear on the internet, because the first couple months were a shit show. I mean, it was bad. The game was literally unplayable, and not for gameplay reasons, but mainly because the servers just flat out didn't work. There was the access token required glitch where you would just not be able to play a game, and it would tell you that you needed the access token, and nobody knew what that was, and it was a meme on the internet, and we were just like, oh, can't find the access token, it's gone. Fortunately, they fixed that eventually. There was the queue. You couldn't even play a conquest game without worrying about the game being lost in the queue. That was just dreadful. That was a bad experience, but it made such a good rebound after those first couple months. I mean, the biggest gameplay issue was that the outfielders would just drop routine fly balls fairly consistently, which is the one thing that really does not happen in Major League Baseball. Like, outfielders rarely make errors, and that did not reflect well in MLB 17. But like I said, they had such a good rebound going into the rest of the year. And as Ryan said, the content felt really rewarding. It felt fun to grind for stuff. And with that being said, I think the one thing that I would love for them to bring back from 17 is the career stat missions. So essentially, for people who don't know, you essentially just get rewarded for playing the game. So you tally a certain amount of hits, boom, you get a certain amount of stubs and a certain amount of XP. You tally a certain amount of wins in any game mode, boom, certain amount of XP, certain amount of stubs. It was just and it was a significant amount that would make a difference. It made it feel rewarding. And it was fun for me at the time because I wasn't super into trying to complete the Dynasty program or the Diamond program for that 99 Griffey. That seemed out of reach from what I was playing. So at the time, the career stat missions were really like an attainable goal for somebody for the amount of time that I was playing. Other than that, I think really just I enjoyed the gameplay. I feel like some of the features that 17 had at the time, they've revised since then, like the fact that you couldn't pick your starting pitcher, you had to have it be randomly selected on the wheel. That was awful.
The roulette.
So glad they got rid of it. It took them too long. I think it took them way too long to get rid of that, because the stamina mechanic in the game right now definitely needs some tweaking. But looking back at 17, I would much rather have what we have now than the random roulette wheel, because I remember that content creators would want to debut a pitcher and would have to play like 15 games before they finally got that pitcher selected. It's so frustrating, and it definitely takes away from the immersion a little bit. I feel like with the stamina mechanic, you definitely get that feel of like, okay, I can only start this guy after so many games. I can only bring in this reliever if he's above this stamina threshold. I really think it helps with the immersion of the game. It definitely needs some tweaking, like I said, but I'm really excited to see what they add next year based on their track record.
Yeah, I want to add in on the pitcher roulette. It also makes stat grinds way better. Because in 17, for example, I had a mission with Chris Tillman where I had to get 100 strikeouts. But he's a starting pitcher, so I couldn't pick him for these conquest games that I was doing just to get those strikeouts with him. So what I would have to do is sub in him to hit for my pitcher, and then he'd pitch with 0 stamina. So adding the picking your pitcher was perfect, even for stat grinds. It goes so many levels that it's stuff that you don't really notice that has a big.
That's a really good point. Like it was just the pitcher roulette is just an awful mechanic. I don't really know why that was ever in the game to begin with. I would love to have been in that meeting where that was the conclusion. That was the solution they came up with, so that people didn't abuse the same like pitcher, like only have 199 and just pitch him every game. I don't know how you settle on roulette. I think maybe it's hindsight speaking, but the stamina mechanic seems like such an easy pick there. But that's okay. We're here now and we got it. I think the biggest complaint about 17 post server issues was easily the just late be great mechanic. Basically, it was much better to be just late than good on a swing. And the best way to hit was to shoot a ball to right field if you're a righty, to shoot a ball to left field if you're a lefty. Just wait for something outside and be slightly behind it. Again, this might be hindsight speaking. I don't really mind that one as much compared to the early homers we have nowadays. I think the frequency of the early homers might be slightly less than the frequency of the just late hits. But I remember at the time thinking that most of the just late hits were on pitches that were away, and just late didn't really feel as broken. I don't know. I felt it was consistently bad. Whereas in 20, we now have the early homer problem where on a slider away, if you're early on it, you can pull it for a homer. Which, I mean, obviously that happens every once in a while, but the little bat animation will show the ball at the end of the bat. So, like, either the feedback is wrong, it's displaying the wrong things, or they need to retune it because you really shouldn't be able to pull a ball that far on a pitch that's off the, like, right on the black and it's off speed and you were early on it. It'd be different if the timing was good or perfect. That makes sense. You could pull that to left, but not when you're early on it. And at least in 17, on a fastball away, if you were just late on it and you shot it down the line, that kind of makes sense. At least logically. Definitely frustrating when you're trying to pitch and a guy can't hit a fastball, but he can shoot it down the line because he's just late on it. But I did feel like there was some consistency there that MLB 20 lacks with the early homers. Now, again, I know Anthony brought up that 20 has feedback problems, but in 17, there was no perfect. There was only good. And I think the addition of perfect is amazing compared to the timing that we had in previous games because, like you said, in 19, it was MLB the line out. Like, it was line out galore. And with perfect, I don't feel... It feels slightly more rewarding. At least if you perfect something, you get a sweet no doubt animation or something. Ryan, what do you think about the feedback as far as hitting compared from 17 all the way to 20? Because in 18, okay, just ignore 18 because we all know that was a shit show. There was no homers. There was no perfect. Just, it's fine.
If I remember correctly, in 17, you couldn't even see like a feedback on your opponent's PCI. It was just their timing. So you were completely guessing at how well they squared up the ball, which is completely different from now. I wish we could see the PCI of our opponent because I just want to know when I'm cheated. But overall, 17 had a pretty good feedback system for the time. They've obviously improved upon it a ton. And especially when you're hitting, you can see the launch angle and the exit velo. But I don't know. It was okay. It was adequate for the time. As far as just late, be great, that was every game. And like you said, outside pitches were more
Anthony,
likely to be just late.
What have you seen from 19 to 20 as far as feedback? Because from your experience, you've really only played 19 and 20. So seeing the addition of perfect versus good line outs, what's your opinion on the feedback?
I personally love the perfect feedback. And I like how there's like 3 different levels to it with perfect pop, fly out, liner, and grounders. I think it's a great addition to the game considering with 19 you could perfectly square up the ball, or you would think you perfectly square up the ball and you just line out to left, center, or right all the time. So I love that addition in 20. Yeah. And it's frustrating with the if you like have a guy with lesser power and you get a perfect fly ball and it's an out instead of like a ball to the gap or something like that. But it's a lot better in my opinion than how 19 was in that aspect. I feel like there's a little bit more rewarding in hits than than it was in 19. I obviously didn't feel like this in the beginning of the year, as you guys know, but I've come around to liking 20 more with the feedback and the
Yeah,
reward
I
system
agree.
for
I
hitting.
think that for this is my personal opinion. I think 20 and 19 almost blend together sometimes. The gameplay feels really similar. It's almost like with 20 they just added much more content. They added features like perfect that made the game better, but there's not as big of a difference between 19 and 20 as there is between, say, 17 and 18, because 18 they added the 125 cap for stats, which seemed really cool when I first heard about it, and then playing just did not translate. The immortal grind in 18 was awful. I mean, you literally just had to grind hours upon hours, days upon days to get these 99s. And if you didn't do that, there was no other way to get any good cards. Like, there were people with teams of immortals, and all they did was just grind the CPU, and I was not willing to do that. Ryan wasn't willing to do that, and we're diehards of the game. I just don't think it was worth it, especially after playing 17 all year. But I'll give 18 a little bit of credit. I like the idea of making 99s that are super juiced. The 125 cap, I did like it, and after seeing 17, where the cap is 99, things did seem like they were a little bit more balanced. There just was less content at the time. So it would be interesting to see what some of the cards of MLB 20 looked like under the 99 cap, just to kind of compare. I think that'd be interesting.
I think the 125 cap was a huge addition. They just didn't know how to use it in 18 because they viewed the 125 cap as there's all these guys who are capped at 99 and they're all the scrubs and even the good players who weren't great. And then the 125 was really for the immortals, the top 15 players that they have the rights to in the game. And I think that 19 really fixed that, where the 125 cap is for everybody. And if they were really, really good at something, then that should be reflected in the card. And the 125 gives more variance. Because, I mean, 19, we were talking about how there wasn't enough variance in cards at times with stats that all looked too similar. But it would have been even worse if the cap was at 99. Because it's a more confined space for the same amount of
Yeah, I
cards.
completely agree.
You know what I mean?
Definitely think that it was a good addition to the game. I think 18, again, looking back on it, maybe the reason why we didn't want to grind 18 was because we just spent a calendar year playing 17. And so one thing that I was reflecting on last night was that maybe the reason I wasn't super into 18 was because I had played 17 for 12 months. I had played it all the way through February. I don't know if I've ever played a game that much. Maybe Call of Duty, but those release every year as well. So at most it's the same amount. I mean, it's really hard for me to play a game that much, and 17 pulled it off. So once 18 came around and the entire Diamond Dynasty experience was a stat grind, that just didn't appeal to me because I had already been playing all year. I didn't want to grind. I just wanted to play with a decent team. And 18 really didn't scratch that itch. And Aaron Judge was on the cover. I bought the digital edition so I didn't have to keep the cover. And then I deleted it as soon as the game was over, as soon as 19 came out. So 18 just really was a bad experience. But to SDS's credit, they learned from their mistakes. 19's content was great. 20 added perfect, and they fixed a lot of the issues with it.
Also to mention, they added new card types such as Prime and Awards cards, which I think is a great addition too.
To be fair, they're just hardware cards with really good card art. like the card art looked sick, but we had hardware cards, so
The
just saying
future's
that.
looking bright for sure as far as 21, but then again, we say that every year, so we'll see what happens.
One of my favorite moments being that 19 was my first year, I didn't know jack shit about the game. So I had some packs to open in like my first week playing. And I pulled the 85 Andrelton Simmons live series. I didn't know what the hell the whole animation was with the diamond animation when you pull a card from a pack. And the next time I saw Ryan in public, I said, "What are the blue cards in MLB The Show?" Because I don't know what it is, but I got one. Obviously referring to the diamond animation when you pull them in the pack. So that was
What do
pretty
the blue
embarrassing after
cards
looking
mean?
back on that.
He then sold Andrelton Simmons for $15K thanks to me. Now, at the time, I was super shocked that he even pulled it because going into 19, pack odds were historically terrible. 19 was way better for pulling diamonds, but even then, he pulled Andrelton Simmons in the first week and didn't know what he was. Just
And Ryan told me to sell him, and I was like, he's my best card though right now. I don't know if I want to sell him.
Yeah, that's. Hey, in March, Andrelton Simmons might be your best card, especially if it's your first year playing. Honestly, that's so funny. Go ahead.
Another one of my
Oh, wait,
favorite
wait,
moments that
wait,
Ryan
hold
will
on.
agree with.
Before you go, imagine if Anthony had pulled Trout, and he's just, what are these blue cards? And it's like, Anthony has pulled Mike Trout, and Ryan's just like,
What if it said? What if I was like, I accidentally exchanged him for a
Yeah.
daily mission. How do I get him back?
You're on Twitter at MLB The Show. I accidentally exchanged my Mike Trout that I pulled. Can I have him back? Anyways, go on.
Yeah, like I was saying, one of my favorite moments that is also Ryan, and honestly probably one of Blake's favorite moments from MLB 19 was the game that Ryan played against content creator Kevin God. Now, this game was caused by me and Ryan making memes about Kevin on Twitter and sending it to him. Basically just talking shit about him, the Jets, and the Blue Jays. And it quickly caught his attention to the point where Kevin said, "That's enough. I'm playing this whoever this troll is on Twitter."
if you want to check it out, the tweets are still up. Everything's still up at Eddie's dad on Twitter. Pretty funny stuff there, if I do say so myself. But I did play him, and it is on YouTube as well. It says Kevin God plays #1 internet troll. So
It's one of Kevin's best videos too for views.
yeah,
It's a great video.
Ryan, just walk us through it. Just walk us through it. I know you want to.
you don't know how nervous I was going up into that game because I knew it would be posted, and Kevin is just one of my favorite content creators of all time, probably my favorite. And he's such a funny guy that I was trembling in my boots. I bought the 99 Eddie Matthews just for that game to show off against him. I did hit a home run with Ichiro, and I wanted to replay it, but unfortunately they didn't add replay until 20. Yeah, I ended up losing, unfortunately.
One of my favorite parts of the video is Ryan's created player whose name was Kevin's daddy, and he had the most ridiculous, exaggerated batting stance, and Kevin's reaction to seeing the created player come up to bat is priceless.
I don't remember, Anthony. You need to refresh me. I had 2 uniforms that I used for 19. I had some cotton candy ones that were Kevin's Clowns. Great
Yeah,
logo.
Those were great.
And then I had another one that said Costo hates Kevin.
Yeah.
Do you remember which ones I was rocking? I think it was the Kevin's Clowns.
I think it was Kevin's Clowns.
Yeah.
That is so good.
It is because because we were hoping he was gonna say something when he saw if you were to see your logo when loading into the game.
It was a picture of Kevin with a clown nose and a rainbow afro.
That was definitely a highlight of MLB 20 or MLB 19.
Yeah,
for me.
I remember me and Ryan were roommates at the time, and I remember him telling me that Kevin agreed to play, and so that night I'm in Ryan's room just watching him play Kevin live, and we're reacting to everything, and Anthony was on share play. That was easily the highlight of 19. And I had never even watched Kevin before because I hadn't been really watching any MLB YouTube at the time. I was way more into MLB Twitch. And so I really didn't know who Kevin was until I watched this video of him playing Ryan. And I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Like, just you guys aren't even talking, but you could tell there was like a banter going on. Like, it was insane. That was such a cool moment of 19.
The bunt dancing done by Ryan in that was definitely part of that unspoken banter.
I had to replace the controller. The triangle button just fell right off.
Just putting on a performance.
We talked about that game last night in our stream, and I made the point that everyone has the moments in their life that are big events that they know exactly where they were when it happened. And I remember exactly what I was doing and where when Ryan played Kevin in a share play for me. I was doing my marketing homework, eating Chipotle, watching Ryan unfortunately choke against Kevin.
Speaking of streaming, we stream almost every night on Twitch, playing tournaments, viewer games, fun stuff like that. We have 2 accounts, Balake34, which is Blake. He has a face cam. You could see how cute he is. And then the Show and Go podcast account, Show and Go podcast, where Anthony streams his point of view. Yeah, we're working towards affiliate right now, trying to get those 50 followers. Any help is appreciated.
Yep, I'm 10 away right now. We are so close, boys.
We're 36 away on the Show and Go podcast account as well. And we're averaging over 3 viewers, so we're on our way.
If you say that you came from this episode for the podcast, we may just do a viewer game with you. We'll see. Check out our Twitter where we tweet out whenever we go live.
We might even do a little giveaway for our 50th followers on Twitch.
Oh, I thought of another thing from 19 that will surely piss you guys off remembering it. Infielder errors every other play, no matter how good their fielding was in the beginning of MLB 19. Do you guys remember that?
Fielding did not matter at all.
It was so bad that they made a big update like months after the game's release that if they had diamond fielding, that they literally cannot make an error on a routine play, which is how it should have been. But yeah, fielding didn't matter for infielders at the beginning of 19.
It still happens awful. Anyway. I made 2 errors back to back with Fernando Tatis's Player of the Month, which is a diamond fielder. He has terrible fielding. Him and Mondesi, ignore the fielding ratings. They get terrible.
My
errors.
first game using Diamond Mondesi, he booted 2 balls. Yeah.
I don't know what was worse, infielding in the beginning of 19 or outfielding at the wall in the beginning of MLB 20. That was awful. I don't even know how to describe it. I think it's the outfielding is worse for me. The ball would be hit at the wall, and they forgot that they were playing baseball.
Yeah, those would lead to extra bases, too. I mean, if you make an error in the infield, it's just 1 base, whatever. But that's changing games with the multi-base errors.
Anthony brings up a really good point here that, diamond fielders shouldn't have been making errors to begin with. And if I'm being completely honest, reflecting on all of the MLB The Shows, I think that the best features that they add to the game are the ones that seem like they should have been there the whole time. Perfect. The pitching stamina so you can choose your pitcher. Things like that they make the game so much more enjoyable from a player standpoint. And it's insane to look back that we played the game any other way. And obviously, again, hindsight's 2020, but I just wish I'm just imagining what it looks like if we have perfect or being able to pick our pitchers in previous games. Like, I might have not ever left 17. Who knows?
It's good to see the game continuously making improvements that are sticking with the game. So it's like we're getting a better version every year. Is what it
One
seems
thing
like.
that I want to go back to, pulling diamonds in packs pre-MLB 19 never happened. The odds were awful. Like, some of the worst pack odds in sports games in general. But when you did pull a diamond, oh my god, it was the coolest thing ever. Like, I remember in 16, I just went on a tear. I had pulled like 2 or 3 diamonds within like a couple days, and I was ecstatic. I was so excited. It was so much fun. I remember pulling Live Series Diamond Altuve, and he instantly slotted in my second base spot. It was so satisfying. And come 19, they up the pack odds, which felt great in 19. And now that we're coming on to MLB 20 and the pack odds are the best they've ever been for pulling diamonds, I definitely think we lost the excitement of pulling a diamond. It happens so frequently that it's really just no big deal to me at this point.
Just while you're on that, I did a conquest last night. I finished one of the conquests for the 11th inning program just to pass time while you guys were playing during the tournament and while we were streaming. And I opened the packs after. And I think out of like opening 20 packs, I pulled 3 diamonds, and I was like,
cool. The
the
feeling of ecstasy when you pull a diamond is just no longer there. And I don't necessarily think we should go back to the bad pack odds. That is not what I'm saying. I just think the way that the market works, pretty much any diamond that isn't Trout or like a 95 is worthless. It's 5,000 stubs. You can get that from playing a couple games. Like, it's really not that hard to get diamonds or Live Series diamonds in this game. And maybe if the Live Series diamonds were worth more than 5K, we would have so much more excitement pulling them. But since, I pulled Charlie Morton 6 times this year and they were all worth 5K, like, no thank you. That was very anticlimactic for me. I've also never pulled Trout though, so I'm still searching.
Yeah, I've had the good enough luck to pull Trout twice in both 19 and in 20 twice. So can't say I've made World Series like you though, Blake. So I'd rather do that than pull good.
It's definitely a trade
diamonds.
off because Trout is just a 1 in a million shot, and you've done it multiple times. World Series, I made World Series a couple times, and honestly, that would probably be my highlight from MLB 17 is making World Series for the first time and looking at my ranking on the leaderboards and being, technically top 1% or whatever. I know a lot of people in the MLB community don't really see that as impressive, and I don't really either with the level of competition that's in the top 50. But it is cool to tell people, they're like, oh, why do you play MLB the Show so much? And it's like, because I'm trying to grind that ranking up. It's so much fun to try and hit that World Series threshold. And honestly, I never thought I would go 12-0. And then, lo and behold, August of 2017, I'm playing a BR run. I'm in my dorm room. I just got my monitor. And playing on that monitor, I finally go 12-0. I get to 9, and I see that my reward is Live Series Trout. So I'm freaking out. Because, again, I've never pulled Trout. And I've never done the collections. I've never done anything. So I've never come close to remotely close to having Trout. He pops up as my 12 game. I'm like, oh my god, like, I cannot lose 2 games here. And I win the next 2. So I win 1. My next game, I'm 10-0 and I'm playing my game. And this was before you could forfeit your run. So I'm in my 11-0 game and the guy quits to reset his run. I'm 1 game away. And I'm like, oh my god, this is happening too fast. So I'm expecting to match up with some like top 50 player that's going to like kick my shit in and I'm going to get ran. And didn't happen. It was like an average player. I was on fire. I out hit him. Easy dub, and we went 12-0. It was insane. I've never come that close to 12-0 again. I've gone 12-1 once, but that 12-0 is definitely my highlight of MLB 17 for sure.
So moving on to MLB 16, I looked back at it and I was kind of surprised how similar some of the things looked to 20. For example, the captain store was around then where you would earn, I'm not sure what to call it, points, tickets, whatever, to spend on players, and you had to level up each captain by selecting it and then playing games, which was really fun, honestly, where you would like pick your player like that you would be rooting for, and the rewards were different for each one. Like there was the 99 Beltran, there was a 98 Trout, there was a 99 Pujols, I think. Anyway, so that kind of preceded the ticket store, which preceded the XP reward path. And I think that's really important to where the game is at now, that was around then. Also looking at some other things, Battle Royale, I think this was the first year of that, where it was still a new concept where there's only one diamond and the team wasn't set up right, where you would have to draft all your positions before going to the bench, which just doesn't make sense looking back at it, but we survived it at the time. And the roulette wheel was awful for Battle Royale because you would try to waste your commons in there and you would still have to pitch to probably their best hitter with a common, maybe a fifth of the time, and that was awful.
Because there was no 3-batter minimum.
But
so that common only had to face one batter.
minimum.
So your leadoff batter every time was your best hitter.
Yep. Also, I don't know if you remember in Conquest, the Conquer, Command, and Embody things, where you would get like Pablo Sandoval, stuff like that. That kind of turned into Team Affinity a little bit, where it's the team, I don't know, the team missions that led to a reward from someone on that team, where you had to take over their stronghold. You had to play innings with them, and then you had to exchange them in order to get that final card, which I think was a really cool concept and that they've really built on. And then we had Mickey Mantle this year. We had Willie Mays last year. The collection reward for 16 was 99 Reggie Stalker. For those of you who don't know, that was Barry Bonds' name back in MVP Baseball 02, I want to say, when he separated himself from the Players Association. So their contract didn't work together, so they couldn't use his likeness. And MLB The Show brought him into the game as Reggie Stalker. There were rumors that Barry Bonds was supposed to go into the game and then a deal fell through, but Reggie Stalker was the end product, and he was a beast.
That was such a cool Easter egg. I loved having Reggie Stalker in the game. It was just such a random feature that you really it almost broke the immersion in a really good way. It was like breaking the fourth wall. It worked really well, and I remember being so confused at the time because I saw this 99 Reggie Stalker, and I'm like, I have never once heard of Reggie Stalker. And I made sure, I was like, Dad, there's not a person named Reggie Stalker, right? That's like a Hall of Fame, 99 caliber baseball player. And he's like, no, I've never heard that name before. I was like, okay, sweet. Because I was like, this guy looks and plays exactly like Barry Bonds. So I'm trying to connect the dots here because I wasn't really involved on MLB Twitter yet. And that was hilarious. But Reggie Stalker was so cool.
Also, I loved that his card art was actually from MVP Baseball. So it was this graphic one of a player, and everybody else had real cards in the game and real photos, and he just stood out like that.
Yeah, that was sweet.
The three players that stay in my mind the most are all A-Rod, though. You had the Texas A-Rod, the Mariners A-Rod, and the Yankees A-Rod. Where the Mariners was like the all-around guy, the speed, the fielding, shortstop. Yankees one was the third baseman with a bunch of power. Rangers one was the one with a bunch of hitting stats, really good contact. And it was cool that they had 3 different peaks of a player, 3 different teams, all in the game. And towards the end of the year, they actually had a mission to where you could get the Mariners A-Rod for free because of Christmas, which leads into the rookie missions, where you would buy a rookie card and you would do stats with them to get their best overall card. And that kind of turned into Evolution this year. And I kind of like that idea. But it was started way back in 16, and I don't think people give credit.
Yeah, that's
to
a really good
16 enough
point.
for that.
The rookie missions were so much fun. That was how you got Joe Mauer, and it was hilarious seeing a silver card or a bronze card worth 6 figures in stubs. Like, it was like this would be a card you would never touch in the game, except for the fact that it leads to one of the best cards in the game. That was such a cool feature. Another thing about 17 that Ryan reminded me, Joe Random led to Pepe Alazar. And again, for those of you who don't know, Pepe Alazar had he was a switch hitting, outfielder? Yeah, switch hitting center fielder, and he had 99 everything. Every stat you could possibly have, he had 99. And he looked just like a created player, basically, but you could unlock him for your Diamond Dynasty team.
Default stance
that was
and everything.
Probably the most disappointing, end game collection reward, because he had the default swing, and the default swing is trash. It's so bad, and it's like, couldn't we have just picked a different stance, something with an open stance or a leg kick maybe, but instead you have this guy barely moving his wrists and barely moving his feet, and it's just such a bad swing. They even gave you the option to trade in Alazar for a different 99. One of them was Chipper, and I remember a bunch of people exchanging him for Chipper because his swing was so bad. They took the stat decrease just for a better swing, and it was, again, such a really cool Easter egg, but maybe just pick a different swing.
And what sucked is that was the only way you could get Chipper that year. You had to grind for Pepe Alzar and then exchange him. And that was you exchanged him, and that was it. You had Chipper, you were stuck with Chipper. You couldn't go back and get Pujols, or I think there was one other one I can't think of. But that was the only way you could get the end game Chipper that year. Another all 99 just bad decision in their part was your cap would be fed players. And say you fed him Billy Hamilton, his speed would go up the most because Billy Hamilton's a speed player. And you could get your cap all the way up to 99s across the board, which was max at the time. And you could pick his swing, which was way more overpowered than Pepe Alazar. So that was just something that...
they did a great job of balancing out the cap in 19 and 20, where you have to pick a position and there are tiers and there's caps on the stats. That is so much better than just having a free Pepe Alazar, basically. All right, everybody, that is going to do it from us here at the Show and Go podcast. I want to give a quick shout out to the wonderful people supporting us on Twitch, like Caleb, NinjaFan, Reese, Jaxie, Goon, and all the other people who followed and supported us. Thank you to Slack Shack for the raid. He got us to affiliate, and we couldn't have done it without you guys. Our Twitch is Show and Go Podcast, and my personal Twitch is Balake34. That's BALAKE 34. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Show and Go Pod. That's Show, the letter N, Go Pod. Finally, leave a subscription or follow and give us an honest rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks, everybody.